Hello, so Moth has just released Cocoon 2.01, so this is the first update since the release of 2.0 a few days ago, and even though it's only an incremental update, there's been some pretty substantial features added, so I thought I'd do a little update and take you through them now. So what I've done, complete fresh install, and I'll show you those new features. So we'll start with the most important feature. The options menu is now accessible with a simple press of the start button. This is groundbreaking. For those of you who aren't aware, it used to be you had to find a blank space, or I think you could select a... No, you had to find a blank space and then go to settings this way. Not the most intuitive and a little bit annoying, but that's been fixed now, so that's probably one of my favourite features of this update. So what I'm going to do is, as you can see, I currently have no metadata scraped. However, I do still have my old ESDE folder. So for those of you who tried to use the ESDE migration that was part of the 2.0 upgrade, you'll remember that it was unfortunately incredibly slow. So what I'm going to do is show you the new system. So this works quite similar to RetroAchievements in that rather than copying the files over and taking up more storage space, it links them. So all you do is you point it at your emulation station folder and you let it do the rest. So we'll go into here, select our folder. Just allow that. I'm going to leave all these on the defaults. Obviously, if you want to pick specific types of artwork for the box art or for the logo, that's entirely up to you. So I can import the metadata only. I could unlink it. That's if you wanted to clear it, but I'm just going to save and link. So it's going to build the media map, and then we'll give this a moment, and then we'll see how long it takes. So there we are. So that was about a minute and a half, give or take. And as you can see there, I've got almost 2,000 games, and it took, it wasn't anywhere near as long as it did when I tried to do it the original way, which I left on overnight, and by the time I'd woken up, it was at about 30%. So you can see here already we've got all the artworks. So that is a groundbreaking feature. So next we also have our RetroAchievements hashing. So I don't think it should have any of the hashes currently. Nope. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go back to that scraper. I'm so used to finding a blank square to select the settings, I keep forgetting I can just press start now. So I have to do that a few times. So we'll go up to scrape. Now I don't need to scrape the artwork or metadata because already there. So I'm just going to scrape the RetroAchievements hash. This will probably take a little bit longer, so I'm going to skip this bit and then we'll come back. Also, a note on the scraper, just whilst I'm here, one of the new features is this platform filter. So if you want to scrape, for example, the missing data for a specific platform, you can do that from here. This is particularly helpful if you add a new console and you just want to get that specific metadata. So I'll just scrape the RetroAchievements hashes and then we'll come back shortly. Okay, so there we are. That took about 10 minutes or so. There was about 1,000 that had scraped and about 600-700 that had failed. They are mostly my arcade games, which is to be expected at this point. But if I go to Game Boy, for example, you can see in the bottom right of the top screen that lovely little trophy icon with the achievements. And if I press the select button, you'll see that I still get that lovely little pop-up banner there. However, also, if we go over to GameCube, it's now compatible with RVZ files, which are the Dolphin file format. The one thing I have noticed, however, is it doesn't seem to be very compatible with multi-disc games. However, that's kind of understandable, because in this case, for Metal Gear Solid Twin Snakes, this is a M3U file, which is a playlist file, because it's got multiple discs. And the same also goes for PS1. So a lot of these here, it hasn't scraped, but that's because I've not yet scraped them in ESDE, so that's my fault. But for multi-disc games, like a lot of these, it hasn't detected them. But if I move over here, you'll see that it started to pull through. So these are CHD games. So it's worked with PS1, but when I checked PS2, it didn't seem to pull them through. So I don't know if that's a minor bug. With how much effort he's put into what is considered a minor update, I imagine that this is something that will be fixed relatively quickly. So I also want to show you, if you didn't already notice them there, if I go back to, say, my PlayStation folder, for example, at the top, you'll see we've got these little buttons. What I'll do is I'll swap the screens, pressing my X button, so you can see it a little bit clearer. So if I go into my PlayStation folder, and then you can see at the top, we've got this little drop down that says manual. So this is a sorting algorithm. So we can have A to Z. We can have recent. I was playing some Jackie Chan Stuntmaster yesterday. Is that a still from Police Story? That's a really nice piece of fan art. Most played. Although my most played is probably Jackie Chan Stuntmaster, but I didn't do that for Cocoon. So I believe there are currently some issues with the time tracking, so this one might not be the most accurate. And then date added. So this probably will just be reverse alphabetical because they were all added at the same time. So I just like leaving it on A to Z. Next to the sorting, we also have this, which is probably, again, I say it's my favourite new feature. They're all my favourite new features because they're all brilliant. If I tap this, we get this lovely list view. Because that was one of my main criticisms, I think, of Cocoon, is not being able to see the name of the game, which for the PS1 era, for me, is fine because I grew up with that console. However, if you're looking at these tiny icons, it can be a bit difficult at a glance for a system you're not as familiar with to find the game you're after. So that's really great. Also for folders, I don't have a demonstration here, but if you have subfolders, for example, I know a lot of people like organising their collections using subfolders, then that will now work as part of these smart folders if you enable smart folders as part of the setup. Originally, it was only the simple folders where you can manually create them, but I believe, I'm not testing it myself, I believe that's the case. Also, some minor little changes, so I'll flip back. So, if for those of you who saw Russ from Retro Game Core's video, one of his complaints was the way the hero animation was at the top. So when it was moving the icon at the top, he said he found it a little bit jarring, which I didn't even notice, to be honest with you. But as soon as he said it, it annoyed me. So that seems to have been fixed. So there seems to be a lot more of a kind of swiping fade animation here. And all general, I don't know if it's a placebo effect or it's just me. The navigation does feel slightly faster. There's nothing about this in the changelog, so I don't know if that's intentional or not. But that's it's a nice change. So is there anything else I need to cover on here? Oh, there's been some audio fixes. So for those of you who use Cocoon, you might have experienced some paranormal activity. If you're like me, where you left your Thor next to your bed on the little bedside table, and then you were awakened at 3 AM when the background music decided to start playing again. It was terrifying. So that seems to have been fixed. I'll find out tonight at 3 AM if it wakes me up again. Okay, so one thing I've also noticed as well, which I'm going to cut in here because I forgot to mention it before, they've now added a battery percentage. Now, the toggle doesn't seem to work when you use it with when you press A on it with a controller. However, if you can just tap it. I've come across this bug a couple of times in Cocoon. It's a beta. They're going to happen. So this was just a quick overview of some of the new features in 2.01. This is only, 3 or 4 days since 2.0, and these features are pretty substantial, in my opinion. So yeah, I'll continue covering any updates. Like I said, like I always say, get in the Discord, support the devs. You can sign up to their Ko-Fi and get access to pre-release versions. I believe he has updated the Obtainium version of this, although you might need to allow pre-releases within Cocoon. Not 100% on that because I installed this straight from the Discord. So, as always, if you like this video, I'd appreciate a like and a subscribe. I have recently passed 2,000 subscribers, so my most heartfelt thanks to anyone who was liked, subscribed, watched, commented, downvoted, whatever you call it. It's been very, very humbling, and I will be doing different types of content in the coming months. I've got some ideas for things I'd like to try, but the tutorials will be coming, and probably not as thick and fast, so I'll try and stop spamming your feeds for a little bit. No promises, though. So, yeah, tell your friends, and I'll see you in the next one.